Unity's new timeline tool. You can go ahead and install it using the package manager if it's already not available. Otherwise, right-click, create timeline under the project window. Now you can just drag that asset into your scene view, and you can probably rename it other than new timeline. Making a quick random sphere object just to show something called the activation track, which will allow us to activate, enable, disable game objects, any game objects. In this case, I'm taking a sphere. The start allows me to snap onto a certain amount of seconds for the timeline. I select the duration as 1 second and then I duplicate it. You can of course use Ctrl D to duplicate it too. This is a setting after your game object has completed its track, what state it should be left at. Now you can see as I scrub through it, it gets activated twice. By default, it stays inactive if I have selected the new timeline game object, because the first frame of the new timeline game object is the deactivated sphere. Now I'll take another example of a cube, but this time I'll show animators. I'll start by adding animator controller. This time I did rename it and called it move. Now I'll add a couple of animations to this. Alright, with that done, set the default to move idle and then add in the other two animations I just made. Now let me go ahead and do a really quick animation on these guys. And first of all, of course, I added the animator to the cube game object. Now I'll record the first animation, the move idle, and I'll probably just add the very first frame for the very position that it's in. I copied the frames over from the previous animation. On the keyframes, you can press Ctrl C and Ctrl V to copy paste keys between animations. It's a simple animation, moves left to right. Now I'll go to the next one and just move it to the top. Same thing, copy the first frame from the previous clip. That's just me testing out all the animations are working correctly. Now let's go ahead and add it to the timeline. Drag, and this time I clicked on the add animation track. Inside this track, now I'm going to add my animation clips. We'll start with the move up, move right, now if you notice something, my game object snapped at a very not the same place where it began from. It's because it's using transforms of the world. I need to use transforms of the scene. With that fixed, it should now be back in the place that it was. Now let's drag it, move it, and snap it right next to where the sphere gets activated. This is just like the sphere where we had the option of leaving it active or deactive after it finishes. In the animations, we got a couple more settings. In this case, I selected ping pong, so the animation will play in reverse once it's finished. And now I've added another animation, which is the move up. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. I was stuck trying to figure out a way to loop this, but I wanted to loop it only once so that it moves to the right, then comes back to the original place. Once it comes back to the original place, it waits a few seconds and then moves up. So the way I did this is that I finally decided to add the move back, the single loop, in the animation itself. So it'll play the complete animation. That means it'll move to the right, then come back to its original location. And then after waiting a couple of seconds, I can play that move up track, and it should just smoothly transition from going right back to where it was and then going up. There is a certain setting that needs to be done if I want this to update though. As you can see, I did that and it didn't really work. I need to update this track to tell it that the animation got updated. So right click. Since it is using that source, I'm just going to right click and match content.